Hello, I'm Alan Furstenberg.
And I'm Mark Tucker, and we are Two Voice Devs.
Two Voice Devs. Hey, Mark.
Yeah, welcome back, Alan. You were gone last episode.
Yeah, take a little break so often. We always like to get in other people, other developers that are out there, get a nice, diverse set of views and opinions and perspectives. Always good.
So you've done that before,
and you've done that before as well.
Yeah, you've had people in to fill my spot, so it was just good to give you a little break too, and really appreciate Darian for taking some time. Just had a lot of interesting things to talk about with devices. He's definitely a lot more into the maker stuff, and just really impressive with the stuff that he's been able to do and is continuing to do.
Very cool. Yeah, no, it's a great episode. It was interesting. You talked a little bit about the hardware and the new stuff that Amazon has announced and is releasing and is coming out. And we'll probably have a similar episode talking about the new stuff that Google is releasing as well. But it kind of I have some thoughts of my own on some of these. So I thought maybe we'd kind of continue the conversation this week. What do you think?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about the devices, kind of what we found interesting, and where we think there's a developer angle. We can talk about that too. That sounds good.
Yeah. No, and it's interesting. A lot of times when we see these hardware announcements, we wonder what's the developer angle on this going to be, or is there going to be a developer angle at all? Yeah. And one of the great things that I think Amazon has done to its credit has been always making pretty clear afterwards, and very shortly afterwards, exactly what the developer angle for it is going to be, what the developer approaches will be. And this was a case where just I think it was 2 days later, Jeff Blankenberg came on with a couple of the program managers for it and talked about what the developer story was going to be for, in particular, the Echo Show 15.
Yeah, so the two aspects of the Echo Show 15, for those who haven't seen the event, but Echo Show 15 is like a family information hub. You can think about it in one way. It's a giant frame that hangs on the wall, 15 plus inches diagonal. You can have a portrait or landscape, and just like all the other Echo Show devices, then you create screens for it with Alexa Presentation Language, or APL. And even out now are those new screen sizes. They're called Viewports. So there is a new viewport for horizontal and for the vertical layouts. And you can start coding today and seeing with the developer tools, either the ones built into the Alexa Developer Console or in APL Ninja. You can go ahead and see what those new sizes are and what your APL is going to look like on those new screen sizes.
No, that'll just be for full size skills, right? I mean, that's the layout they presented it, and that's interesting. That's interesting, and it's important to make sure that your existing skills port over to it. Right. But honestly, I didn't think that was a really interesting part about the 15. And you're nodding knowingly because you heard me say this before. The interesting bit are the widgets, really.
Yes.
It really. The widgets become the great way that you can present that ambient information all the time and have it out there if people want it out there. So you'll be able to see things like, what at a glance, what's happening today on your calendar, or, at a glance reminder that, where the kids are for their after school programs today and what time they need to be picked up, or, those sorts of things. And that's just really, really powerful, a really powerful tool.
Yeah, so I agree. And so what I'm, gathering from that are, that we're going to talk about today are from screenshots that I've seen. I've went through every place that I could find a screenshot of an Echo Show 15 and was, trying to look at that. Plus there was actually, some behind the scenes, what does it look like to create a widget, complete with some screenshots that had, APL code in. So I was definitely watching. He was showing stuff over here on what it was going to look like, and I was looking over in the code screen trying to figure out what was new and available for that. So Is a new viewport for widget, and it's called a medium widget, which would hint at that there could be other size of widgets in the future.
A large and a small widget.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is an additional viewport configuration, so you can create APL layouts for that now. That's available.
You can, and in fact, there's updated import files that have that information in it, and actually the team from Amazon that Arun was nice enough to pass that information off to Alexander and APL Ninja, so you could go into APL Ninja right now. And in fact, I created a sample project in APL Ninja where you could go in and see what the different viewport sizes are for, because the sizes will change based on which hub is showing the widget. Because you can, Echo Show 15, the widgets up to 6 can be on the screen all the time. On other Echo Show devices, there'll be a pull-out sidebar that will include widgets. I'm not sure how many widgets you can have on an Echo Show. But so there are some size differences based on which hub is showing the medium widget.
Interesting. And,
yes.
and I'll get to some thoughts about that in a little bit. So, but let's keep talking about the widgets and the widget sizes for now.
Okay. Yeah. So what it seems like to me is that there's always a portion of the Echo Show 15 that is visible just like an Echo Show, other Echo Show screen. It shows the time, it shows the weather. You can control that in settings. It could show a slideshow of photos. So it seems like there's always a portion of the Echo Show 15 that is like a standard Echo screen, and then there's the portion of the screen that are the widgets.
And that part was what they were calling the dynamic display part. Is that the terminology there? It was something like that.
I'm trying to remember. It was I should have written that down. But yeah, it was they were talking about the fact that it could be, flexible in some aspect, and I don't think they used the word flexible, but yeah, it might have been dynamic. It might have been the content. There was like the content area, something. But yeah, that is the main part. You don't really have any control over that other than in this setting. So it seems like it's still going to be cycling through. If you want to see hints or news or other things, you can control that to a certain extend in the settings for the device.
And I find that's one of the things I found to be an odd choice about how they did that, because in my mind, well, that's just a widget. And if it's just a widget, maybe it's a widget that is mandatorily there, but it's just a widget that so why make it two different things? Because then on the Echo Show 10 and the smaller screens, you have to do that slide out thing. And in some cases, well, I don't care about the dynamic content. I want the dynamic widgets to be there.
Yeah.
That was an odd choice, I thought.
Yeah, I have some ideas of why that might be. Because there are some times where it's going through on my Echo Shows where it's kind of like a 3/4, 1/4 portion off, and in that 1/4 it's showing a recent skill that I've used, kind of to remind me that it's there. They've talked about at the Alexa event that we had probably I guess a couple months ago, maybe, that there are some like featured skills that show up. So I'm kind of wondering if they're reserving that as, I'm not going to go as far as say as an advertising space, but I guess a potential advertising space that's always there.
I think it's no secret that that's going to be an advertising space.
Yeah, I don't know when that's going to happen or like exactly in what aspect that's going to be, but they did hint at some of that stuff with the Alexa Live, that there are things that can show up on your screen, and it has to do with discoverability or retention or engagement. So I think they're wanting to reserve that spot to always be there. So it will be interesting to see how that evolves, and if over time part of your configuration of your Echo Show would be that you want the whole screen to be widgets as opposed to the portion. So you might be able to have 12 widgets on a screen at a time. I don't know. We'll see.
But it also hints at what a large size widget might be sized like.
That's true. And so I wonder also, like, if what we have is a medium widget, I'm assuming a small widget would be the same width but half the height. So you could fit 2 small widgets in a
medium way?
That makes sense. And maybe you can fit 2 widthwise of a medium and a large. I don't know. I'm just speculating at this point.
No, all good. So is it possible to, so we know that it's possible to lay out widgets now. Is it possible to build widgets yet?
You can start to build them because most of what you know for APL is what you're going to need for widgets. So you could, you can build them. You can, provide data like you would a normal, I guess, APL screen. But what's going to change is the data portion. So this is my understanding, is that widgets actually live on the device. And in order to show data, then the data for that widget is going to have to show on the device as well.
And how does the data get refreshed? So
that is the secret. There were some screenshots that talked about a data store. And I think some questions that basically it seemed like when you add a widget, then you could pull down some data, and then there's some sort of an API that you could push data updates to the device. But I'm trying to think about how that's going to be very challenging for developers, because there's going to probably need to be some sort of a back-end process that I don't know, maybe I'm just speculating at this point, but that maybe when you add a widget, you get an event that then you can register in some back end saying this is a widget that is being shown. And I'm assuming when you make it go away that it will go to some other one so you can deregister it. So there's like some database that's keeping track of all the widgets that people have put on their screens. And maybe along with their user ID, that would go along with the skill, because widgets always have to be deployed as part of a skill. And so then there would have to be some back-end logic if something happens in the back end or like in a game. I don't know exactly what. Then you would have to go through all the widgets and push down new data. And I'm assuming also that you probably don't have a lot of data that you can push down. I think each widget would probably have very minimal amount of data that
also minimal data that it needs. And because you're not going to be displaying more than will fit in a tiny area. So
but you could also have like that widget be kind of like a slideshow. Like if you let's say it was a weather, you could have it be the day's weather, and then like the next hour, then like precipitation, then like pollution. I don't know. You could have.
No, that's a good point, because they talked about building a photo slideshow widget type widget. That makes sense. So somehow, so that implies 2 things, right? One is that it can dynamically pull data down or be pushed a notification about data. And 2, that it has some internal coding logic that it can do, so that it knows, to show this for 15 seconds and then either show different data or request different data and go to the next screen.
So there are some events that you already have as part of an APL document, like an on mount. And there's also like part of animations. You can kick off, like you can wait for an on mount and then have that start a animation, and the animation can have a delay time and then a kind of an animation time, and then you could put that in like a parallel. So then when that finishes, then you maybe like can kick it back off again. Or so it is a little bit weird, because it's definitely not JavaScript that you're writing inside of APL.
You will go to I'm really not ready to have my mind blow up again on this.
So it's some conditionals and some events, so that you can kind of I don't know. It will be interesting. And what's also not exactly clear to me is, is having a widget on the screen just good enough? Does it have to do something? When you tap the widget, can it expand?
Well, that's an
take
interesting.
take up like half of a screen and show you, like if it was a photo and it's like some slideshow, you're like, oh, I really like that photo. You can tap on it and it expands to the full widget area. Maybe, I don't know. And then, or
That's
does it start a skill? And so then the whole screen would turn into the skill.
I'll be honest, I had assumed that tapping on the widget would activate the skill, but that was an assumption. Either that was an assumption or I got it mixed up with Google widgets.
Yeah, I don't really know the answer to that.
Interesting. Okay, I hadn't thought about that, or I like I said, I hadn't thought that it might do something different.
Yeah, so this is all like, I've seen like him playing around with I don't know if it was a shopping list or maybe it was a calendar. I think he was showing his calendar and he could scroll up and down on that. So I'm like, okay, so that's interactive and it's still keeping the widget in the area of the widget, but what else could you do? I don't. So I was, just kind of having a thought exercise where maybe you can somehow make it bigger or somehow you could kick off the skill. I don't know for sure.
So that, so I think that again goes back to the question, can you build them today? Can you build a widget today?
So probably, I think the answer is that no, you can't build a widget today, or yes, a very small number of people can build widgets today. But can you start preparing creating widgets? Yes, you can start today. So you can create the UI and figure out what's going to be in your widget, or like how many, what skills that you have should surface widgets, if they should surface one or more widgets. And you can start thinking through that exercise, and you can see how much space you have constrained to put data into a widget. And you can start designing the canvas of the widget. And you can even start playing with data by just using the regular data template binding that they have, knowing that you're going to have to change it out to this thing called the data store.
Well, I mean, it almost sounds like you're not going to really have to change much. It just means adding the data store component that will be able to dynamically update it in some way.
Yeah.
And then all the bindings automatically get reflected. I mean,
yeah, I don't think that there'd be anything different or special about the bindings. They're pretty, pretty full featured, I would think.
So I think that leads to the other thing that I got from Jeff's presentation that made me kind of a little suspicious. There's going to be a widget directory of some sort, separate from the skill directory.
Yeah. So my understanding is that the widget gallery lives on the device, so you can swipe off and click on widget gallery or something and see a list of widgets.
And then from there, touch on it. It would look like it was a long touch, and it adds it. And
yeah.
In the demonstration, it didn't quite work. So there's still some bugs to be fixed to finish this out. How does that scale?
Because my understanding is that there is no filtering or sorting in version 1. And you don't even have to have the skill installed in order to see the widgets that are available. So, 100,000, so I think they're going to have to slowly bring developers into this and kind of test it at different stages. So there's definitely going to be some early winners in this space just because they have access and others don't.
This very much seems like it's going to be a race to get the first widgets out there, because that's going to give you the land.
Yeah. Or, when it comes your time, if you can do something better, that's still going to be, because I think they're still going, once again, my guess is that these Echo Show 15s are going to be available for Christmas, Hanukkah, the holiday season, right? And there's going to be a big push. They might be a really good seller, this year, but they're going to still, over the next year or two, they're going to, expand out, and more people potentially, hopefully, right, we'll start buying them. So
Kind of what the skill directory reminds me of is something new that's kind of sort of been announced, and that's known as the Actions Launcher. And this is something that's available just on smart displays. And it either does, or it's only available on some smart displays right now, but what it appears to do is show kind of a list of your most used actions. And then you can get a full list of all of the actions that are available at that time. And right now, these are mostly first-party actions. In fact, I think they're all first-party actions. So it's things like YouTube. I think this, Spotify audio is available on some of them. But these are things that you can swipe up and get the list of actions that you can launch by touching them. And it's not quite the same as a widget, but I can kind of see that it might evolve into that sort of thing.
And no, that's interesting. So it would be kind of equivalent to like the skill directory, but you can get it on your smart display.
Well, it's more like a list. I think the rough equivalent would be a list of installed skills already.
Okay.
But there's no concept of installing an action right now. So there's a little confusion about what exactly this is and how you get onto the list of things that are included in the action launcher. But it's kind of more like what you would see on a tablet or a phone of your apps that you have installed.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's something I've been asking for, because you can ask on your smart display, your Echo Show, show me some skills, and it will go through and suggest skills for you. But what I would really like to see is like, what is the list of the skills that I've installed in the, I guess in various orders, alphabetical or by most recently used. So I could maybe not exactly remember what it was called, but get back to it quickly and then launch it.
Yeah, but I could easily see, widgets taking on some of that role. So the skills that you most use, you can assign, you can turn its widget on or whatever, and you could put that widget on the screen.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that'll give you a reminder or an easy way to access a skill that you already have. We think, depending on how.
Yeah. So it could be just a list of like the 20 most recently used or most recent or most used skills that you could then just tap a widget to launch, maybe.
Oh, that would be an interesting first. Well, we only have 6 widgets, 12 widgets on the screen.
It's, I think, 6 widgets total, I think you get.
Yeah. So, and if each one takes up, if each skill would be one widget, since it's I don't know, we'll have to see.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye out for that.
It'll be very interesting to see how Google's approach to widgets, which are starting on the phone, and Amazon's approach to widgets, which are starting on the smart display on the 15.
Yeah.
How, exactly what path they both take, and how they're going to be similar and how they're going to be very divergent. Because Google's approach is interesting in its own ways. Google is very much tying widgets to the widget feature in Android, and smart displays don't run Android. So I'm not sure where all of that is going.
Yeah,
I'm
so
very confused about where all of that is going.
A good question that Darian asked me last week was, how do widgets live in a voice first world? Are they giving up on voice first? And I still think, I guess I still believe that that a skill needs to, or an action, or voice app needs to be able to be strong on its own with just the voice experience, and that the screen can add additional information, even different information, kind of expand what you have available in a voice only experience. And plus then you get the reminding that it exists, the retention and kind of the reminder of daily use, and also in this case discoverability via the widget gallery, where you like, oh, this looks interesting, I wonder what XYZ widget is, and they tie it and like, hey, I like that, and then you get into this the skill that way. And it'll be interesting if you start getting information like, oh, this skill was launched from from a widget, or this skill was launched from,
Right. Well,
you know,
once again,
a
I
quick
assume it'll
link
be
or
a different. I assume it'll be a different invocate. You know, the same way that you can now see how things are invoked if they're invoked via, you know, a quick link, or
yeah.
if they're invoked. You know, we've got these different invocation methods at your disposal for a skill. But I think that also starts bringing up some stuff that your colleague at Rain talked about on Voice Talks a couple of weeks back.
Yep.
And how, you know, in questioning, okay, how do we make things that are still voice forward, but take advantage of the multimodal opportunities where it's most appropriate?
Right.
And I think it's a good question. And I think, you know, you guys are clearly thinking about that. And I think the approach makes sense.
Yeah, and I could still see, you know, just because you have a widget on your display, you might glance and see it on your way out the door, which would remind you to talk to your voice assistant in your car or on your phone or something. You know, it might be a visual cue for you to invoke your skill in a different setting that might be voice only.
Yeah. Or carry on or invoke it by touch, but then carry on a conversation if that's appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the Echo Show 15 and widgets. There was another feature of the 15 though that I found interesting, and I'm curious to see how it plays out for developers as well. And that's the facial recognition feature. Yes,
no, that's a good call out. So existing today is the ability to create a voice profile. So I could walk up to a device, just, you know, smart display or smart speaker, and talk to it, and it will recognize who I am compared to somebody else in the household. And so it can behave differently, or it can have data stored that's just my data. So that, you know, starts to think about, well, when you walk up to this, the Echo Show 15, there's also now a camera that will have, I guess, similarly, a visual ID that will go along with you. And you could change the widgets on that screen, and potentially maybe even which widgets are on the screen per person. And so you walk up and you're like, oh, this is my, you know, weight tracker, step tracker information. This is my calendar, my song, you know, my playlist. One of the things I could easily see is that the reminders are different when I show up into a room versus when my kids walk into the room. Right. One of the things I'm kind of curious about, though, is from the developer perspective, is does this mean that if I've invoked a skill and I walk away, what happens? Because we know currently the identification portion only works at the initial invocation. It only works at the, you know, when you start the skill. Does this now mean that it could re-authenticate the person in front of the screen every turn? And if for whatever reason I've left the room and somebody else has walked in, it can now say, this is a different person, I'm stopping the skill, because that's a security issue. Yeah, I think there are definitely going to be questions like that in the future. You know, not today on the Alexa, but on other platforms that I've looked at. One of the cues to I guess context to voice apps is the person that's talking. So maybe you don't even have a voice profile, but the camera knows that you're the one that's talking. So there might be 2 or 3 people in the frame, that it knows to treat you differently than somebody else. I don't think we're there yet, you know, with you know, the Alexa and Google Assistant and stuff, but that could be something that this is paving the way for. That's a really interesting contextual point. I had one other question about kind of what this leads into. So one of the features that Google introduced on the developer side, I guess about a year ago now, maybe a little more even, was this notion that we have sessions, we have user storage, we have session storage. They also introduced something called home storage. So all the devices on a network and anybody that uses that's authorized to use one of the devices on the network has access to this home storage.
So this lets you create things like Post-it notes that everyone in the household has access to.
Right.
That like would be ideal for widgets on the 15.
Yeah, no, I
Is there a
agree.
notion of a home storage so that, you know, you and everyone else in your household is sharing a calendar or is share, you know, basically it's just shared calendar, you know, a shared calendar or other shared or a shared shopping list.
So, you might have your calendar and a family calendar, and when you walk up, you want it merged, or your to-dos and a family to-do, or the same thing with post-it notes for you, post-it notes for the family. So yeah, I see that that's something that's needed. But like today, when you create a Alexa skill, you get a user ID and you can store information with that user ID. But in reality, the user is kind of more like that family account. It's anybody that
Oh, that's
uses it,
right.
regardless of voice profile. So it started out as user being basically whoever is talking is the user. So but you do also have the ability, if people have a person ID, they've personalized it with the voice ID, then you get that as well. So yeah, I think the data is there, or the identifiers are there today, that you could store information per person and per family, or like per account,
Per
really,
account.
which I
Yeah.
think is very similar to what you're talking about. Yeah.
So you would get both the account profile as well as the voice profile ID.
Yes.
Okay. And that would serve the purpose fine, as long as the same account set up all of the devices. But that's a safe assumption.
Yeah, and that's really the way that they do it. You have an account that your devices are associated with. So, but you could, I think I haven't really done this, but I think you could log into the Alexa app as different users and still have that. I don't know. It's because
Okay.
you can do account linking per person as well. There is some complexities to it, and I don't think I've delved into it, and I don't know that a lot of skills have gone to the effort of keeping track. Plus you have to do, if like if they didn't recognize you in any particular turn of conversation, then that person ID wouldn't exist. So then what happens? Do they get default information that's at the account level?
Yeah.
So it's definitely more complexity for us developers to try to figure out what to do in that.
Okay. So we talked about the show 15 and widgets a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There were some other announcements. Most of the announcements were not Alexa or developer related, really.
Yeah, I would say that's true. There were things like cameras, doorbell cameras, and the security drone. Again, I think they announced that last year. Now I think maybe it's
that was
actually
last
available to.
year's surprise, but this year's surprise was really a surprise. I don't think anyone guessed this one.
Yeah, are you talking about Astro?
We're talking about Astro. Yeah, we're talking about the robot.
Yeah, that was interesting. So I don't know. It's I think it did what it was supposed to do, which was, turn some heads and get some conversation going. And in some cases it's cute. It's definitely got a cute side of the robot. It's more I don't know, R2D2 cute versus Dalek scary, right? So
a lot of people I saw related it to Wall-E, which I'm not sure is an apt comparison, but it's not that far off.
Yeah, no, I think it might even be closer to Wall-E than R2D2. Yeah.
The interesting note about it, though, is that it is an Alexa device, so that the screen that's on it runs skills and has, APL profiles associated with it and all of the other fun stuff. So developers will sort of kind of be able to develop for it anyway.
Well, yeah, I don't know if they can specify or develop for anything special other than, just this, that their existing skills run on it. And as long as the viewport looks nice.
Yeah, well, I could easily see the choreo extensions being applied to the robot. That would be really interesting.
True, that would be interesting. Also, I would think it would be interesting. They've got on the screen when the robot's, I guess, in robot mode as opposed to skill mode, has two circles for eyes, and they're kind of expressive. And could you create themes for those, like different faces as a developer?
Facial widgets.
Yes. So and maybe along with sounds, like you can replace on your Windows PC all the different sounds when different things happen. I wonder if you could do like a theme pack and change out all the different tones and sounds it makes, plus the face on it, and give different personalities.
Interesting. So yeah, it was interesting. Not a lot of info there, it sounds like, though.
Yeah, not really. The big thing was, you can do widgets, and this is how you do widgets, or as much as we can tell you today. Nothing really on the developer side as far as, can you have a skill that tells tells the Astro to move, or do a little dance, or add an accessory for a tail and wag its tail, or I don't know.
All sorts of possibilities, but doesn't seem like anything yet.
Not enough information to do anything.
So the other device that, well, I don't know, what's your opinion on the Amazon Glow, not to be confused with the Echo Glow?
Yes, so the Amazon Glow looks kind of like a periscope, has a camera and a display built in, and does projection onto your tabletop. Not exactly.
It does projection. Well, so according to what I've read,
okay,
I don't know that I'm wrong, but according to what I've read, it also comes with a mat. And it does the projection onto the mat.
Onto a smart mat, maybe.
Yes.
Okay, that would make more sense, because they were talking about like tanagrams and stuff. And I was like, well, how are they going to detect where these different things are? I guess they could do it with a camera overlaid, but I don't know. That seems interesting.
Everyone seemed to be suggesting that it was a camera overlay, but what I was reading is that it comes with a touch sensitive mat. And that's what it seems like. That's what will be getting all of the input.
Okay.
So it seems like an interesting device, definitely aimed at kids, which is an interesting choice. And it's going to have its own developer environment, which is also an interesting choice. Yeah,
they didn't say anything about skills or that you would develop it in any way. Like, they didn't talk about APL technology. They didn't talk. So I don't know. It sounds like it's a completely different animal.
Well, from what Jeff Blankenberg said, it's not an Alexa device. It's an Amazon device. So it'll have its own environment, which, who knows what that means. But it'll be interesting to see exactly what will be possible with it. But it's clearly aimed at an education market.
Dusting off the old Fire Phone OS, or?
Could be. I don't know.
I don't know.
Certainly not out of the question that, Amazon has the experience with Android to build it on top of Android, or into Android, or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's certainly possible.
Yeah. So this is one of those things. If you're interested, sign it up for it, and at some point they'll contact you with some more information. But I suspect it's going to be quite a bit different than those of us that are used to writing voice experiences.
I was going to say, and again, one of the interesting elements is that it does not have a voice interface.
Oh, yeah. I guess I hadn't really thought about that.
It's not an Alexa device. It's something completely different. And I'll be honest, I find that disappointing. This is a great opportunity for them to just include Alexa in there.
Yep.
And they chose not to for some reason. Even, especially when it's aimed at kids who don't, what we're seeing with kids right now is that they have a great affinity for working in voice.
Yeah.
And reaching out to relatives using voice. This is a great, and that's exactly what this device was meant to do. And they didn't take advantage of it. I find that odd from a consumer point of view. And as a developer, I obviously find it very disappointing.
Yeah, and from looking at the pictures, it seems like it's like the size, width-wise, it's probably like half of a width of a laptop screen and like twice as tall. So it's kind of an interesting form factor, and it's got an 8-inch screen in it, but and you don't have to have one on each end. You can have one person on a tablet and somebody on with one of these Amazon Glows on the other end. I guess it didn't say, I just assumed it was, but maybe not, that you could use an Alexa as one side of the conversation, but maybe not. Maybe you have to do a tablet.
I don't know. That's a good
to
question.
Amazon Glow. Yep.
So interesting stuff is always coming. And like I said, it'll be interesting to see what Google is also releasing this year, and if exactly where the assistant plays in with all of it. And what access developers will have to some of it. But certainly I think, we're going to see a push on Google's take on widgets, and we'll be talking about those more in a future conversation.
Yeah, no, I agree. And looking through the list, there's the Halo View, which is like the the Fitbit,
it's a Fitbit
or smartwatch. So can you do voice skills for those? Can you do APL for like a watch size? Haven't heard anything on that, so that could be something that we look
but
out
again,
for.
This would have been a great place to put widgets again. I definitely think what we're going to see over the next few years is a return to widgets everywhere. We're going to see it on all of the operating systems. They are going to be very heavily widget based. I think that's my big prediction.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think if I have any contrary view to that, but no, I think that we are going to see more widgets.
But the Halo
View, yeah, because there's the Halo. I think there's just the Amazon Halo, which is the band, which tracks your steps and your sleep and stuff. But then this one has a screen on it. Other ones seems like there's security stuff, a smart thermostat. Oh, there was a couple of services that I talked about, like Hey Disney and Alexa Together.
Alexa Together, I think, is an interesting service. I think that there's a lot of good stuff that went behind that. And we know some of the people that have been working on it to get on Alexa Together, and that's good to see.
Yeah. I think that's good. In one way you kind of think, oh, wow, that's, 20 bucks a month. That's quite a bit. But if you think about that, it ties together, maybe aging parents that are living on their own, being independent, and then multiple family members that have, shared responsibility to, check in on them and help them out. There seems like there's quite a few features. And then I guess other things that are in the market, it seems like, $20 a month actually might be, pretty reasonable.
No, it seems like it'll be a good service, and one that, I think we know is a market that makes a lot of sense for where voice is.
Yeah. And where our demographic is, especially in this country, right?
Actually, and I think it's an interesting, point that things like Alexa Together and the Amazon Glow will work together. And so here you're not just focusing on, the folks in the folks that are in the middle age wise, but you're focusing on extreme older and extreme younger, and then connecting them. And that's I think that's just brilliant.
Yeah, I think that's it's really a good use of the technology. Answering some of I think the early use cases they've talked about when they first came out with Alexa. It's like, oh, you can use it for this, so you can use it, and I think we're starting to see that that coming together.
All good stuff. I'm looking forward to seeing as it comes out and as people can start developing for it, how we do so.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, and some of these services, I think they're, at least starting out are, 1P or first party experiences. I don't know that there's really a developer opportunity there. But maybe over time there will be.
And if there is a third party experience available, you can be sure we're going to talk about it on Two Voice Devs.
Two Voice Devs. Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you, Mark. Always good talking about this stuff with you.
Yeah, it's always lots of fun, and fun when new things come out too.
See everybody next week.
All right, take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.